And we're back now with Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga for our monthly visit. Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Doing well, Rick. How are you?
Very well, thank you. 'Tis the season, as it were. I think I want to start with generally, I think everybody knows who's ever watched anything I've done here, either on audio or video. I always try to talk with our guests a little bit beforehand so that I don't look absolutely stupid asking questions. But I don't have a list of written out things. I don't have a script or anything like that, never have. So I usually have an agreement as to what we're going to talk about. I didn't mention this to you, but it is the season. It's Christmas season, and I think that kind of officially, I think Thanksgiving, not Halloween so much, but Thanksgiving kind of rolls out the end of summer for me. And then now we're getting ready for winter. But you've had some success on the business end of town. There's a new, what's it called, a pop-up shop or something like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
you've had ladies' nights. So tell us a little bit about the season.
Sure. Well, the pop-up shops we may have talked about before, but so this was part of the city's LRRP, Local Rapid Recovery program that was started probably well over a year ago before I was here. We had sought grants for several topics, items, one being the pop-up shop. So in partnership with Action, who owns the building, this is where the old Cameron's was for the locals down on Main Street. So partnered with Action and the Chamber of Commerce to set up this pop-up shop, which I'm trying to visualize the square footage. I don't know what it is, maybe 150, 200 square feet, very small space, well lighted, great location. And so we had two businesses that came in early in the summer. They stayed for, I think it was 3 months. And now there are two more businesses in there. And you'll see on my base here, this guitar strap I bought there is a repurposed car seat belt.
Yeah.
So I would urge people to get down there, take a look. Natalia from Titali, I believe that's the name of the place, there's two. And all four of the businesses have been women owned. So currently there are two women. They sort of take turns with the cash register, take care of each other's side. But it's worth going in to see what they have down there. Excellent stuff. And it's the whole concept is it gives these online Etsy type businesses a chance to try out the brick and mortar without all the risks of the first last deposits, all the other things that you need just to try to secure space. So it's working out pretty well so far for the first four, and I think they will be there through the end of the calendar year, and we're looking to extend it going into next year, probably not so much January and February, but maybe starting in March in the spring.
Well, the other thing we did talk about, no news is good news. I haven't seen any bad news recently regarding City Hall or the city of Gloucester. And I just want to ask you again, anecdotally, there was a lot of hand wringing and consternation when the new building complex went up at Gloucester Crossing. There was some hand wringing and consternation when the new building, apartment building, was put up on top of what was formerly the Camerons. But that seems to be all working out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still some people who are bothered by it. It's a huge adjustment. I mean, those of us who grew up in the area around Fuller School, that's where we used to go hang out and play and catch frogs, and things like that, to see these tall buildings. But it has provided housing for a lot of people, and a good chunk of them are affordable housing. I think the Y obviously turned out, and for full disclosure, everybody knows I didn't support selling the whole property. When I was on the city council, I felt we should have hung on to at least half of it because we may have had a need in the future, which funny enough, we ended up having a need in the very near future after we sold it. But that's all water under the bridge, over the dam, whatever metaphor you want to plug in. But what's there now, the YMCA is spectacular. They do a great job. They have since bought the rest of the property around them. So what was the Fuller site, with the exception of the Halyard area, the Y now owns the bank site and then the empty pad next to the Y. And they've got some plans for some outdoor stuff, but stay tuned on that. But I was on the school committee during the Gloucester Crossing discussions, and that was supposed to be the end of Western civilization too. And I think it's been a pretty good thing for the city overall.
Yeah, no, I know. It's funny how things work out sometimes. And what's going on with the old Y? I see a lot of deconstructive machines over there and everything.
Yeah, so it's going to be senior housing. I forget how many units. I'm going to say 20 plus or minus. I'm sure someone will correct me. I don't have it in front of me, but that's going to be completely raised and a new site put in. So I think, again, it's another need we have is for affordable housing. Do this so people can see my fingers. Affordable housing and senior housing. It'd be great to find a way to do some veteran housing or a combination thereof. But this is a start, and I think it's a good use of the property.
What's the latest with ARPA funding?
So ARPA funding, to recap, we got $23 million was allocated to the city whenever it was, early 21 or late 2020. The city hadn't taken any action on it under the last administration, which was a good thing because I came in and I didn't have my hands tied with promises made and distributions already set up. So since we've taken office, we've already spent $13 million, I should say, we've allocated $13 million under the category of infrastructure, which includes $3 million for road repairs. And if people are driving around the city, pretty much in every ward, they're seeing a lot going on with major repairs for things that we just haven't been able to get to because we get a very small amount from the state through what's called Chapter 90 funding, and very little we have in our regular budget. And I'll circle back to that in a second. So a lot of work going on throughout the city. And then another $10 million was put aside to help go towards the new secondary sewer treatment plant, which is another thing that's about 30 or 40 years overdue. That I've sort of used the analogy that it was like musical chairs, that all the mayors before me were able to just sort of push it off. Oh, we don't need to do it just yet. And now the music stopped and there's no way for me to sit down. So we have to take action. And I believe the EPA and the DEP, Environmental Protection at the Fed and DEP at the state, are very happy that we're finally taking action on it. $10 million is probably, with the best estimate, maybe 10% of the total cost, but it is a start. We'll be looking to find other sources of funding, because if the other 90 has to come off the backs of the ratepayer, we're going to have a very expensive flushes in this city. But we are working with our legislative friends and our U.S. delegation as well to try to see what we can do. But I was going to say about the city, the streets. So we have what used to be about a $60,000 line item for road repairs. And at the end of last fiscal year, we added in an additional $300,000 before the end of June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, to allow the DPW to just go away and start whacking up, attacking several projects they weren't able to get to. This fiscal year that we're currently in, when we did the new budget, we upped that amount from $60,000 to $350,000. Huge jump, there's just no question, but it's still a fraction of what we need. If someone said, here's a check for $50 million, that would probably we'd be able to do all the streets, but 350,000 is a lot better than 60,000. Mm-hmm. And this extra $3 million from ARPA is just icing on the cake. One-time money, though, unfortunately. So we did do a release a couple of weeks ago for the next topic. The next category was economic development, which included things for parking study. Facebook sort of went ballistic. Why are we spending $1.5 million on a parking study? But I just need to clarify that $1.5 million is for the entire category. The parking study is just one item on that in that category. The study is about $50,000 and some change. Yes, there was a study done internally about a decade ago. It wasn't very extensive. It was pretty much a count of what we have. This will be an external study that'll be more comprehensive, and one that we want to put into work to make it work for us. Not just thank you for this $50,000 study. We're just going to throw it on a shelf and ignore it. I mean, we've had too many decades of that. So that's one of the items. The harbor plan is underway. They're wrapping that up soon. So we have a placeholder for money to help implement some of the recommendations for the harbor plan. The EDIC, the Economic Development Industrial Corporation, quasi-public entity, oversees the industrial parks. They're asking for about $60,000 to do an energy study. One of the bits of concern of some of the industries in the industrial parks is the energy supply is lacking. So we want to prepare this study so we can go to National Grid and say, hey, look, here it is in black and white where we have deficiencies. We need you to do some upgrades. Other things, looking at wayfinding, basically signage. If you go downtown in the surrounding area, you'll see remnants of Mayor Toby, remnants of Mayor Bell, Carolyn Kirk, Swati, different signage that was put up. What we're going to do is make a more uniform set of signage, modernize it, and have point people back and forth to Main Street, Roger Street, the other areas, Lanesville, Lexington Avenue. Facade program, we're looking into that, see if we can do things to beautify the fronts, which are basically the backs of the Main Street buildings on the Roger Street side. So there's a whole lot of things we're looking at to spend that $1.5 million on, which brings us to the latest announcement, which came out, which was affordable housing. One of the big concerns during the zoning discussion, the zoning changes that were proposed early in the year, was it doesn't do anything for affordable housing. And that was huge during the campaign for school committee, mayor, city council. Everybody was talking about the need for affordable housing. So we have dedicated $1.5 million to go to our affordable housing trust. When I took office, the Affordable Housing Trust was down, I think, 3 members. They just never been filled. So they're back to full capacity. We're trying to empower them to be more proactive instead of reactive. We've given them this $1.5 million, or soon to be receiving this $1.5 million. We've given them a steady funding stream of the tax we take from the the short-term rental tax, the local option tax. It was promised but never delivered in years past. Starting when I came in office, once the free cash, as it's called, which is basically the overage we receive in tax revenues, we dedicated about $50,400, which was the equivalent of what we had taken in for this short-term rental tax. We'll do the same next year, early next year, when we get those numbers finalized. We're looking at something maybe another $60,000. So at least they have an ongoing stream of funding for their activities. We're also looking at identifying city-owned land that we might be able to spin off for development. I know development's a bad word for some people, but for development for true deed-restricted affordable housing, that if we can provide the land cheap or even at no cost, a developer could come in and build some units. That one of my criteria when I was saying, let's work on this is, not big halyards, no offense to the halyard, but something that will fit in with whatever neighborhood this land is in, whether it's colonials, duplexes. So we're still trying to cross the T's and dot the I's on that, but we'll hold neighborhood meetings in the area or areas we think are good candidates for it. Going forward, though, that leaves still about, I think $6 or $7 million from the ARPA funding. And some of the categories that'll be forthcoming: community initiatives, which is pretty much the nonprofit partners who had reached out during the listening sessions. We talked about that before. There were about 200 people who participated either through the remote meetings or through the online form with their ideas. So community initiatives is one. Next one is parks and open spaces. We have a lot of playgrounds, just a lot of open spaces that we've done a good job trying to keep up, but not a great job because time and money haven't been there. Now we have this huge influx of money. We need to really beef up our play area, especially since with the halyard and the Fuller sale, we've lost that field, which was a public field. With the new school, which I think is great, by the way, we did lose Meadows Field. Meadows is being moved over to the Green Street playground, but it is a net loss of a playing field. So that's why I think we need to dedicate a lot of these funds right now. I'm looking at about $2 million of the ARPA money to beef up some of these areas around the city that allow open space, whether it's for recreation, passive or active recreation. Another category, arts and culture. That'll be things such as our contribution to the Gloucester 400 activities, 400 plus activities. Some art installations that are around the city that might need to be updated. Tablet Rock is one that's at the top of my agenda. And then other things like general government buildings, which are things like the projects we have going on. City Hall's got some work that needs to be done. The police station is another one. We read about the Legion. We'll see what we can do with that. And of course, trying to help to bring down the fundraising need for the library by giving a little bit of ARPA to that cause. So we have spent many years through necessity not maintaining buildings, not maintaining open spaces, because it was either keep the day-to-day running or do those extras. It's kind of strange. You think of maintaining a building as an extra, but when you came down to keeping staff to keep the schools open, to keep the city government running, the thing that always came up short were buildings. This one-time money, if I want to make sure it goes to does the most good for the most people over the most time. That's kind of the mantra we've been talking about. and using it to upgrade buildings that we've ignored or didn't do as much as we could, and open spaces we ignored or didn't do as much as we could, I think it's a great use of the funds. That was a lot of talking on my part. Do you have any other questions?
No, my head's spinning from all the numbers, and as you know, as a math teacher, I'm not very good with money. So but I appreciate that. It's very comprehensive. And I think finally, Mr. Mayor, if we could turn to a happy topic. Last, we got. I always have to give credit to the Tar family, to Bruce Tar, Senator Tar, and to his brother Ringo, and all of their family and friends, because they managed to secure a Christmas tree up from Shelburne, Nova Scotia, every
Yes.
year, and Senator Tar and I talk about that. And it's a really great thing for the kids. There's a parade along the waterfront, and then the kids get to turn the lights on at dusk and so on. But that didn't happen last year, I think, or the year before due to COVID, and it didn't happen last Sunday as it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So we're,
I was reading on Facebook, which, as we both know, is the best place to get accurate news. And there were some people who were kind of, I think, unfairly squawking about the fact that the parade was postponed, and blaming City Hall. It's like, first of all, it's run by volunteers, and so we should respect that the volunteers spend a long time throughout the year planning this process, and it was their call to postpone, not to cancel, but to postpone from last Sunday to this Sunday. And so let's just get that out in the open. Thank you, volunteers. Ringo, especially, the unsung hero of the city, who does so much. And he's not the guy looking to be in the spotlight about it. So he's probably being embarrassed that I'm mentioning it here. But it is on track for this Sunday, weather permitting. And I believe at 2 o'clock it starts down at the State Fish Pier. The parade will wind its way down to Kent Circle, Kent, World War II Memorial, and then we'll have hot chocolate, caroling, and flick the switch for the lights, and officially have Gloucester's holiday season get underway.